you cannot be a polar explorer. That doesn't in itself equal a livelihood. You have to find income streams that will sustain you in that role, if you like. And you can sit in different industry sectors, if you like. And I think that I've started in one, which was in the tourist industry as a guide, set up the first guiding service. And then I've sort of migrated across to realising that actually, especially when I'm doing more of my own feats of endurance and so on, you're in the entertainment industry, which is a bit of a surprise for some people. And once you realise that, or accept that, which isn't necessarily easy to do, then you can see where the opportunities are. But just finding a way of keeping what you really want to do, which is do things on the ice, whether they are adventurous or scientific. That's the real challenge to be a polar explorer. Not what you might imagine, which is can they reach the pole with no resupplies and that sort of thing. And that is a challenge, but there's a bigger one behind the scenes. And it's a cash burn environment, the polar regions, because you can go in your sandals and a Land Rover or a camel or on foot in the deserts. Probably for about 50 quid, you could do a pretty serious desert expedition. To go up to the Arctic or the Antarctic involves chartering aircraft, where you're looking at sort of tens of thousands of pounds as an absolute minimum, and very easily you're up at the £500,000 mark. And therefore you've got to be able to raise money, which means you've got to sell, which means you've got to structure deals that make sense to those you're trying to secure funds from. So I spent most of my time doing that. No cash, no play. They're both journeys. The entrepreneurs that we have here have been on journeys. Many of them, if not all of them, epic to a degree. They have their moments, watershed moments, and there's a direct parallel with making an actual physical journey in an extreme environment. The nature of the challenges in the specifics is obviously different, but in the generality, they're all the same. You have an end game more often than not. You know roughly what sort of challenges you're going to face, whether it's on my journey or their journey, but how and the ways in which you tackle those things. For example, failure, which I always refer to as temporary setbacks, because I see them for what they are, and they're mainly learning opportunities. There's very obvious parallels, and I do try and make what I learn from my expeditions. I do try and apply, but it's not so much trying. I just do. The way I think on expeditions, I just apply in my business life. I think that's really the best way to put it. Most people have a style of leadership. There is, and those styles can be right for some situations and not for others. And I'm probably reasonably flexible as a leader, and I can adopt several styles depending on the situation, and have the nous to realise which style is appropriate. So sometimes I'm at the front and I'm quite prescriptive as to what I want my clients, for example, to do on an expedition, because they're novices, they don't know what's going on. But my role is always, by the end of a 10-day sledging expedition to the North Pole, for example, with people who've had no experience, is to be shadowing them by the end. They are running the expedition. They decide when they get up in the morning, they decide when they stop, they decide how many miles they feel they can cover, they do the navigating, they do the cooking. So I do it all to start with, and I spot which people can pick up which range as quickly as possible, so that it's their expedition, they have ownership of it. No one wants to follow me to the North Pole in some dreary line, just gritting their teeth. They want ownership of it, and that gives it so much more value to them. So that's one of my sort of leadership skills, I think. It's passing on knowledge, giving people confidence, and then putting them to the front and giving them support. And I think that's, I'm sure, how a lot of people operate here as entrepreneurs. What I used to do was run a selection course on Dartmoor. It wasn't really a selection, because most people had pre-selected themselves or deselected themselves. They didn't even put themselves forward. So the right people tended to come forward, and then we just put them through an incredibly steep, progressive 4-day series of experiences, progressively hard, with a lot of support. The idea was to get everybody through it, so that I knew I could look them in the eye on the ice, because I would be the guide in X number of months later, And if they were starting to get jittery, or if I thought they might start to get jittery, I could look them in the eye and say, look, I know what you've done it with me. What we're about to do is not as hard as you think it's going to be, and I'm telling you now, you will be able to do this, so relax. It's going to be fine. And they had some trust because they knew that I knew them in these sorts of situations. It's all about levels of stress. The fact that you're in the polar regions or it's blowing a hoolie, it's not really red, that's just detail. I knew the levels of stress levels that they could deal with, and it is stressful, very stressful some of the time, but I ultimately had their confidence, which means that they could do. We had already explored way beyond what was necessary out on the ice.